Today on the show, we have a $100 million CEO and founder of MyOutDesk, Daniel Ramsey.
I've been in this business for nearly 20 years, helping companies scale with virtual assistants. I've literally helped 9,000 companies hire virtual assistants. Really, it's labor arbitrage. We have 150-ish employees, and most of them have been there for 10 years.
You used to look up to, I think it was an economics teacher. You thought he was like God, and he basically said you were screwed.
He basically said, Daniel, if your parents are poor, you're going to be poor. And I just, in my head, I was like, you know, that guy. I just remember thinking I'm going to be wealthy, and business has been the avenue for me, and really talent and helping companies build teams. That's been kind of my one thing.
You were in the virtual assistant space before virtual assistants were a thing, right?
Yeah.
Everybody and their uncle now has a virtual assistant, and half of them have a business that does virtual assistants, right?
There's a lot out there now.
But you were in the space before it was even a space. Like, you were kind of a category creator.
Yeah.
How have you seen that industry shift or pivot or transition from the time you created the category to where it's at today?
Yeah, so 17 years ago, I hired my first virtual assistant, and she was in the Philippines. I have a great podcast about her on our podcast. But it was really interesting. The perspective then was, I need help, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I was running around, $1 million business, and I just didn't like doing the paperwork. And honestly, things were falling through the cracks. And if you fast forward to today, you know, we just did a bid for a large company who's about to go public, and they're like, we need 70 people. Wow. And I'm like, okay, here's our scope of work. Here's an NDA. Let's roll, right? So we've evolved to kind of helping large and medium-sized businesses really figure out leverage and understand how to take advantage. Think about this, like this water bottle right here. It's maybe $3-4 here in the U.S. In a lot of the globe, it's $1. And so we help companies arbitrage. Really, it's labor arbitrage, and so it's not overly complicated. But what's shifted in the industry is there's a lot of competition. Most of that competition's at the low end. Like, hey, I'm going to save you money. They're competing on cost versus value or service or experience or understanding or depth of knowledge. And it's usually just one guy. Like, one guy out of a car. Like, he pops his trunk and says, I got somebody here and I got somebody there. So, you know, we have a leadership team. Our average tenure for employees more than 10 years at the company. We have 150-ish employees, and most of them have been there for 10 years, which is wild. It's funny because in talent, turnover is the enemy of scale. Like, if you're growing a company and you keep losing your best talent, like, that'll kill your ability to grow and scale. And so we're just really fortunate and lucky to have, you know, such a depth of people. We have an attorney on staff, an HR professional on staff, sales professionals, marketing, tech. I mean, HIPAA compliance is a big deal, and we're a company that's HIPAA compliant. We work with investment advisors, banks, health organizations. So there's a lot in the marketplace now.
So you say you're very lucky and you're very fortunate. I would call bullshit, because I know who you are. You're very strategic, right? So how have you retained talent? What have you learned on the journey? Because I'm sure early on it was harder to retain talent, but now you figured it out. It's a formula. So what do you do to retain talent, not only globally, but the people in your office here in the United States?
Yeah, on the global perspective, there are a lot of tells when you're doing an interview, and so that's really why experience matters. You know. There are employees who like need a job but don't love what they do. You know, if you know, you and I both share wrestling, right?
Yeah.
I am a wrestler. Like, I started my career as a real estate person. So I'm a real estate person, right? And now I have this huge talent company. So I'm a talent guy. I define myself in those 3 buckets and categories. I would encourage listeners, if you're looking to hire people, you want to hire people into like humans who define themselves with the role that they are.
Yep.
Right? And what happens then is like you're aligning life purpose with business kind of goals and trajectory. And I didn't learn this, you know, it took me a while to learn this. We'd hire somebody, they'd be a massive talent, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to go start my own business, or hey, I'm going to go directly compete. I can't tell you how many real estate people hire an assistant, and then that assistant ends up taking 10 of their agents and moving away. Yeah. Even if you do your best job you ever can of taking care of people, like you train your competition, and then they go and compete directly with you with your own playbook.
Yep.
And that happens a lot, you know? It happens a lot. And so just really making sure you understand who you're hiring, if their life purpose aligns with what you need, that they need a job and want a job, and they don't want to learn how to do your business. That's a really important thing. And then you're looking for a track record of success. And I'm giving people the playbook right now, because this is probably the biggest mistake entrepreneurs, business leaders, C-suite people make, is they have a lot of hopium. You know, David coined that. Yeah. I heard that first time. Yeah. I hope this works out. Yeah. And I think that's been a mistake. And it's interesting too, because I'm talking about individual contributors. And it's completely different when you hire managers. It's completely different when you hire directors. And it's completely different when you hire executives. And it's completely different when you hire a CEO to lead your company. Yeah. So what's interesting is there are different talent processes and different talent attributes for each style of employee that you need. And we are really good at helping companies navigate those conversations. And that's probably why our competition, even though they can compete with us on price, they can never compete in value or service or experience.
What are, from your perspective, what are the advantages and disadvantages of being the CEO and the owner of the business? And do you ever see yourself transitioning out of CEO?
There's a lot of disadvantages to being in the business and the CEO and the founder. I mean, think about it like this. One, you have the control. It's almost like being a king of your own kingdom, right? You have control over everybody's destiny. And so that makes the words that you say a little bit, if you say, hey, good job, that means a ton. And if you say, hey, this doesn't look good, that also means a ton. Yeah. So there's some, that's probably the biggest disadvantage, being the founder and also the CEO. To your second question, I love what I do. I've told everybody, and including my leadership team, who at times love having me on the leadership team, and then hate it at also times, because one of my special sauces is I just know and feel how it's going to go, and I can tell when something's not right, and even without evidence, which is challenging for some folks. But I've told the team, if we can't grow the company under my leadership, then I'll step out. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really good way to hold yourself accountable when you own something and also are the CEO. The results determine whether or not you stay. Yeah. And that makes it very clear to everybody that results are what matter. And that's kind of how I run the business.
It also sets a standard that I'm going to hold you guys to a level, but I'm going to hold myself to that level too. Yeah. How does that translate for you into your children? Because you've got some beautiful young kids, and parenting is a totally different journey.
Yeah. Parenting is a different journey. I think when you're young, you have a lot of opportunity to kind of implant in them anything you want. And so if anybody's listening right now, you have from 0 to 6, 7, 8. And I say 6, 7, 8 because I have a 9-year-old who, she's just pulling out of my ability to kind of tell her she's beautiful and have her completely believe it. Yeah. Right. So I think the most important thing is parenting's broken up into 3 different groups. In the beginning, the 0 to 7, 8, 9, whatever you tell them, they believe. So that's a job. You got to tell them good things. Mm-hmm. Encouragement, positivity, you're beautiful, let's do this. Let's give it another try. You can make this work. They want to know that you believe in them. And then the middle years, it's your job to be fun. And I'm talking about a dad. Moms have a completely different job. I would even pretend to understand. It's so funny. My wife is like, it's been so exhausting. I'm like, what do you mean? We've been hanging out with the kids all day. This has been fun, So it's been we have a completely different experience. But the middle part of childhood, I would say 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, is just really having as much possible fun and spending time. And then the last part is you have to transition to being a friend and an advisor when they ask. That's I'm not looking forward to that part because I'm like, here's what you should do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm enjoying the journey of being a father, and it's tricky because you want the world for them, but they really have to determine what they want, and then you get to support them in their journey.
How do you balance it all? How do you do time block? How do you create balance?
I don't have balance. I want to be clear about that. And any CEO who says they have balance, I'm like, okay, well, then you're just a peacetime CEO.
Mhm.
And as long as the business is fine, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
I look at myself as a wartime CEO. I like to fix things, I like to grow things. So there's no balance. I do time block. I have a to dominate list. So to dominate separates a to do list, which most people start with to dos and then they try to force rank. I try to start with a to do, force rank, and then dollar assign, which is the definition of dominate. Like if I do this work, what kind of return will we get? And then I'll put another kind of filter on it. Is there anybody else at the company that could do this? And what are the things that are only for me? Like this conversation.
Yeah.
This is for me.
Right.
And this is my job. I can't ask, somebody else at the company to sit down and hang out with you.
Yeah.
You know?
How have you gotten to that point of that decisive delegation, right? Because I struggle with, even on my journey, I'm sure there's still moments where you do, where you're like, I got to do this. I've got to do this. And there are some things that we have to do, but a lot of the things that we get stuck doing, we could delegate, and you've mastered that or are on the journey of mastery towards that. How did you struggle through that? How did you fail through that? Was it like, I'm going to have an emotional mental breakdown if I don't start delegating, or was it just like easy for you to delegate?
Yeah. One of my founding stories is I found myself on my honeymoon, so I was a helicopter delegator, right? So the whole journey doesn't look like today. Today is a different Daniel than 15 years ago. So I'm on my honeymoon and it's 2 a.m. and I'm still working. So at that moment, I was providing work to others, but really kind of micromanaging. Like, did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? And that's kind of how most people start. The pressure is real. You kind of feel like if it's not perfect, it's your name on it. And if I don't get it perfect, then what does that say about me? And I think that's a common experience that all CEOs, founders, leaders have, especially if they're really, really good and have high standards. I think what happens over time is you have some success. I mean, I think that's in anything, whether it's sports or life or relationships or marriage. You know what good looks like. You hire well, you delegate well, and they surprise you with like amazing results. You start having enough of those patterns, you're like, oh, okay, this is how it's done. And so over time, I've just gotten better and made all the mistakes. Hired somebody, didn't have the right job description, hired wrong. I've done everything that you can imagine. And the way you stay sane is you just fall down, you wipe your knees down. Sometimes there's blood on the knees.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a little dirt, but
Yeah.
other times, your knee's broken for a month or two or a year or two. But again, it goes back to just sticking with it over the long term, knowing that this is how you build a company, and you just keep going.
You're also a student of life. Like, you love to study people, patterns, systems, processes.
Yeah.
Most people love to study and then never take action. How do you get yourself from study to taking action and now owning a hotel portfolio, for instance?
Yeah. I watched a lot of entrepreneurs build companies without actually doing the work. And I was like, that's fascinating,
Yeah.
Because I'm the kind of guy, I think you and I are similar. I don't mind doing the work. Like, I love being in the conversation. I love meeting the people. I love solving the problems. Like, I just like being in the work. And that's unusual for a CEO. It's a superpower, and it's also the thing that sometimes holds me back. And so I saw entrepreneurs having massive success. I mean, you're a great example of that. You don't own GoBunnins. You're running it. And I've seen that happen, that pattern, to your point. I've seen that pattern enough that I was like, okay, it's time for me to try this. So in the hotel business, I've never even worked a day in that job, right? And we're doing pretty good in terms of scaling. I think we'll cross 10 million-ish in revenue this year, which is really exciting. And, I don't know the employees. I know one guy, which is a new experience for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm relying on this guy to build culture. I'm relying on this guy to keep the revenue right. I'm processing systems, hire employees. Like I don't even interview employees when he hires, which is ultra uncomfortable for me 3 years ago when we started this. And so it's a journey. This is that if the audience have seen Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant, you've got W-2 on the left, bottom, you're a small business owner, you're a large business owner, and then you drop to an investor. I like to master all the categories. And so I think that's probably been the most interesting thing that's happened in the last 3 to 5 years for me, is allowing other people to build the businesses that I own.
And that person that you're betting on in the hotel business, like there's 3 types of talent from my perspective. There's proven talent, emerging talent, and then there's no fucking talent. Like there's people that just have no talent, right?
Yeah.
This is somebody that was emerging talent. This wasn't a guy that's done hotel roll-ups and giant portfolio consolidations. Like this is a guy you've groomed and essentially have just handed the keys to.
Yeah.
How have you built him up to have the confidence and the competence to lead this business?
What's interesting is great talent doesn't need much. That's the truth. Whether they're emerging or just pure talent, it doesn't really matter. I think Mitchell is his name. Great guy. I've known him, since he was basically a kid. He's from my hometown, and I watched him basically do everything I said, which is interesting. So before we worked together, he was like, "Hey, I want to build wealth." I was like, "Okay, go into Emerge." So then he went into Emerge, and then he joined another mastermind group. And then, he was an individual contributor, and then we talked about what it would take for him to be a manager. So I watched him from afar take on more and more responsibility and build more and more wealth. He put a budget together. He got married. He married a good woman who also was in business. Like, so what has happened is I've watched him do all the things he said he would do and actually really grow. And I saw this trajectory of an emerging talent. And I thought, gosh, if I could provide an opportunity and some mentorship, what could we do together? And that was a good bet. But it was a bet, 100% a bet. Just like, when you got hired in the beginning. Just like when, my first client said, "Okay, I'm going to buy a house with you, Daniel," even though you've never helped anybody ever buy a house. Like, you own one house and I'm your first client ever.
Yeah.
Like, somebody has to take a bet on us as we're kind of growing in our world. And I'm fortunate that I had a lot of people help me, mentor me, take a chance. When we first started a virtual assistant company, like, virtual assistants wasn't even a term. Like, it wasn't a thing. The 4-hour work week hadn't come out. And, I have a friend, he's in San Diego, and he said, "Hey, could you get me 5?" And I was like, "Well, I've never done that before. Are you okay if I charge you a little bit?" He goes, "Well, charge me a bit, but I need them next week." So.
But just a little bit. Charge me just a little bit.
Yeah. He was like, "Okay, you can charge me, but I need them next week." He's like, he had such a big pain point in his business that he was willing to, through our relationship, he was willing to take a chance. And so I think a lot of people foolishly take a chance on somebody without any track record. And somebody who just talks well and there's no confirmation of like that they've done things, right? And so I think that's another kind of superpower, is like, when you're interviewing talent, you want to kind of line up what they say with what they've done and make sure that they're fully in alignment. That matters even when you're investing in other people's companies.
Absolutely.
As we've learned.
As we've all learned and continue to learn.
Yeah.
So when you look at the virtual assistant space, there's a lot of, I think, preconceived notions about it. There's a lot of delusions about it. From your perspective, when somebody's looking to hire talent and they're trying to decide, do I need to hire someone local or do I need to go virtual? What are they not aware of that the virtual workforce can give them the power, the capabilities to do?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's how capable and motivated these folks are in other countries. We've just opened, and I haven't told many people about this, but we just opened our first office in Africa. Wow. And so...
What part?
Well, we're in Morocco, but the access, once you're in the continent, you can actually go anywhere. So I guess Ghana, Kenya, South Africa is a huge talent hub. And a lot of big players are there. And so, you know, what's interesting is there's a lot of motivated humans in this world who actually care and do hard work and are really, really intelligent, really smart, really capable, really accomplished. And so most of the time, like in the beginning of my career, I was telling people this works, right? And now I'm saying, hey, not only does this work, but it could blow your mind.
Yeah.
And so those are the conversations. Like I still have skepticism. That one deal I was telling you about that has 70 seats, you know, they're like, does this work? And I'm like, hey, I have this example, this example, this example, this example. In this one, we put 600 people in the company over 3 years. Like I'm positive it'll work. And you guys just need 70, so this will be easy for us. And they're like, this Daniel saying it's going to be easy, you know, like it's not as complicated as people think, and yet it's also not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So from your perspective, how many virtual assistants do you have that work directly for you, and what is the scope of things that they do for you?
That's a good question. We believe in a blended model where like 70-80% of the doing is actually done outsourced. And so what we hold inside, we have U.S. employees doing is the consultation, the strategy, the leadership, the high-level stuff where you have to understand the client journey and you have to be a professional. Like our accountants, our controllers, our CPA, like they're in the U.S. But all of the accounting work, all of the bookkeeping, all of the invoicing, all of the reconciliation, that's all done in the Philippines or outsourcing for us. So accounting is a huge function. Sales, when somebody, for instance, somebody raises their hand and says, I'm interested, like that initial consultation of like, okay, who are you? What's your pain point? You know, how many do you need? What does your world look like? We use a virtual professional to do that, virtual assistant. Marketing coordination, that's an easy one. The person that's going to edit and chop this up and make the reels and, you know, put the end and the beginning in, like that can be done virtually. So think about it like this. Sales, marketing, operation, executive assistants, accounting. Those are the main ones. Operations support. I mean, just getting stats on your clients, like putting them into a CRM. Like there's just a whole bunch of things that your US team doesn't need to do. But another filter to go through, those are like the main categories. Another filter to go through is like, is it a face-to-face conversation or is it done on a computer? Because 90% of the stuff that we do is on a computer, and that means that we probably at MyOutDesk, we can do it for you or with you.
What's fascinating too is people don't understand truly how talented these people are. Like they are very well educated, very hardworking, and very talented. Of course, there's some bad ones, and that's why you need to use groups like MyOutDesk to say, hey, let's vet it, personality assessments, interview processes, background checks, health benefits, like all the things you guys provide.
No, we even do a medical examination.
Wow.
So what we'd had is, and this is a funny thing about scale, right? Why it's really important as a business owner or a C-suite person or a leader to not hire just anybody. We've made every single mistake you can possibly imagine. And we've also, because we're in the human business, you know, we have 2,500 employees, right? We've also had all the bad things happen, like, you know, lies, cheat, steal, like all the bad things have happened because that's what happens at scale. Like you just collect, you know, 2,000 people into a room, there's going to be a bad apple. Like that's just how it is. But every time something bad happens, we change our process. And so we have our virtual professionals, you know, they go through an FBI grade background check. They go to a medical exam and actually get a screen. Like we're going to work with our partner who is our customer. Like we think of ourselves as a talent solution partner who our main job is to help the companies that we serve get the talent they need so they can go out and grow and scale. Like that's it. And so in that process, we're really partners in their business to supply 70-80% of the talent they need so that they can win in the marketplace. Like that's a big responsibility. And so it requires a lot of transparency, working together, understanding the issues, and then being able to be clear. We've had clients that are crazy. We've had people that work for us that are crazy. We just sit in the middle and try to help everyone win.
Right. And what's cool, like when we work with you with GoBundance, a lot of people say, I want a virtual assistant to be my admin. but they don't spend the time or the energy to get clear on the job descriptions, the expectations. What's this person going to be good at? You know, what are they going to need to do? What's their skill set? You know, you've really mastered with your team the onboarding process of a client or a customer or partner, as you so well said, to make sure that they get clear on their needs. And so if someone's listening to this going like, gosh, I need a virtual assistant. And I will tell you, everybody in the world needs a virtual assistant. Like,
dude, we have a $7 billion energy company where the C-suite didn't have an assistant. Like the entire leadership team, none of them had an assistant. And I was like, you guys are a $7 billion company. Let's get you a couple people.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, and it's crazy what these humans who are amazing people can do for you and how much they become a part of your family. Like my virtual assistant, for instance, has been with me for 9 years. She reminds me of like, hey, I'm going to order Valentine's Day flowers. And I probably shouldn't say this, but hey, I'm going to order Valentine's Day flowers for your mom, your mother-in-law, your wife, your daughter. Like the amazing things that they can do to just help you stay fully present when you are trying to scale a business. Because I think what you said earlier is spot on. Like everybody asks me this question of how do you have balance? And I'm like, my definition of balance is no balance. Like, I don't want balance. If I wanted balance, I would just go get a normal job.
I want to, and sometimes I fantasize about having a job because they're having one boss, having one thing to do, like having clear expectations, like
having vacations where you could actually say, I am going to take a vacation. I don't answer my phone. I don't answer my emails, but I don't want that. Yeah. That's just not who I am.
Well, we don't want that because we're not wired for that. Correct. And so I work really, really well in that scenario where, you know, it's interesting. You said that the flowers.
Yeah.
So a process would be those people are in my personal CRM. It's in my calendar. The virtual professional asked me a week prior. We get a note like, hey, what note do you want? We're talking about it. I'm not writing it. I'm not asking her or him to do it, but it just becomes a living, breathing process. Birthdays, Valentine's Day, Christmas, you know, like all those things can be done virtually now, which is wild. I mean, you can send a handwritten note to somebody all completely virtually. That did not exist 17 years ago.
No.
And so what I would encourage the listeners to think through is, who do I need to win on my team right now? Like what departments, what's going on in my business? What's the talent gap right now for us to win? The other thing that's really interesting is, you know, with inflation the way it is right now, interest rates high, this weird tariff stuff, a lot of businesses are going, oh gosh, I need to save some money. And so some of our most successful clients who've built multiple teams in multiple departments, they can point to saving millions of dollars a year on their bottom line just by hiring us and creating that blended model. One in particular saved $14 million last year, and they're the only profitable version of their company that's publicly traded. And it's really cool to work with them because we have 600 of their people in our company working for that company. And there's a direct line not only to their service level agreement, meaning they're serving their internal and external clients at such a high level compared to their peers, but also their bottom line is just really enhanced compared to their peers on the marketplace. So, you know, we're not just, you know, let's get an assistant because I need some help. Like we can actually impact your bottom line really, really at a high level, plus give you the talent required to scale and understand what's going on.
Which is very important. A lot of people think like a virtual professional is, okay, I'm going to delegate the non-dollar productive activities and I'm just going to have somebody that answers my email. Like what you've mastered with MyOutDesk is, yes, we have that too, but we also have somebody that can come in and run your marketing department and take it to a whole new level. We have someone that can run customer service, take it to a whole new level.
That's right. What's interesting is the thing that's different between companies that, you know, embrace this model and companies that don't. Number one, they find their US team being able to focus on the strategy and the strategic stuff, focus on their high dollar clients and really serve them at a high level. So it's a really interesting move for companies because all of a sudden your most, you know, quite frankly, your most expensive employees are doing the most important work all of a sudden. And that's the definition of scale. Like you give away work, you refocus on the higher dollar, you know, productive activities, and then your company grows.
So let me ask you this question. Somebody's listening to this, they're like, man, that guy's got his shit together. And you do.
Yeah, thanks.
But there's always places in our lives where I believe we're flirting with disaster. And so as a CEO, as a husband, as a father, as a hotel owner,
Yep.
where are you most flirting with disaster in your life right now?
What a great question. So we have a great executive team, but my biggest challenge is onboarding executives right now, and then having them drive. I'm a doer. I like to be in the fight, and so we've had some turnover on our leaders, which is really hard for the committed people. And if you're listening, I'm really sorry. I'm going to be better. But the disaster part is really growing leaders inside of our company hasn't been a major focus of mine, and that's kind of where our focus is shifting over the last couple of years. And I haven't gotten it right yet. It's very different to have a massive talent come on your team and have them really win and really kind of thrive. It's a different skill set, it's a different process, it's a different hiring process, it's a different onboarding process. It's a different level of alignment for you as a leader. And so that's probably been my biggest challenge. And it's the most important thing that I have to do this year.
Is develop leaders from inside.
Yeah.
So how can people learn more about MyOutDesk? Where can they go to learn more about virtual professionals? How can they find you, follow you on your journey?
Yeah, my biggest advice to folks, if you're interested, jump on our website. There's a button at the top that says talk to us. It's completely free. We give away our strategy, the first meeting, all of the information about how to win, like guides, strategy. We'll actually create a strategic process with you, meaning here's what we think you should do, here's what you think you should do, and then we'll marry those together and have a written plan to move forward. By the way, a written plan to move forward, like that's a really big deal for a business. How to embrace this virtual professionals and this blended model, that's a massive big deal, and all of that is for free. So we have professionals in IT, professionals in sales, marketing, accounting. So we'll wrap all of our years of experience around you and help you figure out what your best next step is, and then hope you hire with us. That's the other thing we give all of that for free. So I'd grab a consultation, go through the process, and see if there's opportunity. We tell a lot of people no, and we also tell a lot of people yes, but here's the work that we need to do together to make sure this is successful first.
That's awesome.
And that's not a clients don't like hearing yes, and you need to do this work, right? Yeah. So it's not exactly the best, business decision for us, but we know long-term relationships are the key to business. Yeah. Relationships are everything. And so for us, it's more important to do a little bit of work up front and make sure it's right before we move forward together.
Well, I'm grateful for your time today, man. I'm grateful for you opening my eyes to virtual professionals 13, 12 years ago. I'm grateful for the conversations we've been able to have and being able to watch and learn from you as a leader. Thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, great to be here, man. Thanks.